Welcome to the Young Turks. We got a hell of a show for you guys today. As usual, some serious stuff, some light stuff. In a little bit, we're going to get to Trump pardoning a turkey. That ought to be awesome. Doug Jones comes out with a devastating ad in Alabama against Roy Moore. President Trump has weighed in. Is he going to support Roy Moore or not? A little bit later in the program, and I'll break it down for you guys. And then in the second hour, we've got Charlie Rose. Devastating, done, stick a fork in him. Really bad. So sometimes some of you folks are saying, hey, you're covering too many of these sexual harassment stories one after another. This is a watershed moment, man. And one after another keeps coming out. We actually literally can't keep up with them. And so we got to give you the big ones and explain the context of it and what it means for society, et cetera. And we're doing the best we can. All right, before I move on to today's stories, and the first one, like I said, will be light. Oh, we got some great updates on Just Democrats. Exciting announcement today, and then on Wolfpack as well. Okay, but before I do any of that, I just want to quickly note one thing. A lot of you have been asking about what happened with Jordan Chariton, and we cannot legally comment on it yet. And that is because we need to and want to respect people's privacy, including Jordan's. So we will be able to comment on it hopefully soon, but not yet. If you think that's frustrating for you, it is far, far more frustrating for us. But we will talk about it as soon as we can. In the meantime, we will continue to respect everybody's privacy on it. All right, now let's do the show. Let's go over here. Okay. So we have the annual tradition here in America where the president pardons a turkey. It's preposterous. We slaughter millions of them for this holiday of ours. Let's just keep it real. But we pardon one, are we not magnanimous? Anyway, it's okay, it happens. Trump has not done it particularly worse necessarily than anyone else. Actually, no, well, you be a judge for yourself. I want to show you Trump thinking that he's pardoning a turkey and how it turns out. Let's watch.
You don't show the aspirin over there.
His aspirin.
After that, he said, I'm not going to pardon you. You've been terrible to me. You've been very unfair to me. You're a fake turkey. Well, in that case, that would be true. All right, that was, of course, from the campaign when he had that goofy shoot with an eagle. So this is the actual video of him pardoning the turkey.
I feel so good about myself, telling you. Are you ready, drumstick? Okay. Drumstick, you are hereby pardoned.
So people try to find something wrong with every single thing that Donald Trump does. You don't have to look that hard, okay? But in this case, some folks have looked too hard. I don't know if this guy's joking or not, but Dave Brown writes, Trump may have pardoned the wrong bird. Oh my God, we've got a conspiracy afoot. Okay, there is no such thing as the wrong bird. We're killing 99.999% of them. It could have been another bird, and what difference would it have made? Okay, all right, I hope he was joking. There's no real conspiracy here. In fact, I pardon Donald Trump's pardon. It was perfectly fine, there was nothing wrong with it. All right, but we're gonna continue to have fun because you can't pass up an opportunity to bring back the legendary Sarah Palin pardoning of a turkey that went disastrously wrong. And afterwards, I'm going to read you some great tweets on the Trump pardon of the turkey. But you remember this moment, she goes to pardon a turkey and does not notice what's happening in the background, which is decidedly not pardoning the turkey. Watch.
Oil prices, are you concerned about any state programs being on the chopping block?
You know, thankfully, we're in a good position still, fiscally speaking. So accounting for that, all of that comes into play now at $50 barrel oil.
Great, so why was today so important for you?
Especially with so much that has gone on in the last couple of months that has been so political, obviously. Heavy-handed politics that invites criticism. Certainly we'll probably invite criticism for even doing this too, but at least this was fun. I'll be in charge of the turkey. Yeah, I'm where I need to be today to prepare for that.
Okay, I don't know what part of that video I love most. Is it the turkey going through the grinder in the background. And I'm sorry, guys, for all you vegans and vegetarians, I'm sorry, but she's like, I'm here to pardon the turkey. I'll probably even get criticized for this. Meanwhile, the turkey's like twitching in the back, right? Yes, you did get criticized for that because you're a knucklehead. Or the guy who keeps looking back, the grinder dude, who's like, yes, dude, you're in the video. Anyway, now back to Trump. Let's continue to have fun. Matt Fuller with a great tweet. He said Trump, he's imitating Trump after the pardon. Isn't this just the greatest turkey pardon you've ever seen? I mean, what an amazing pardon. Just the classiest turkey pardon. Everyone says so. No one has pardoned a turkey better than Trump. No one. Just a tremendous pardon. Really the greatest pardon in the history of Turkey. Elon Gale with another great one. Writing in, for Thanksgiving, Donald Trump is going to pardon a turkey and then yell at it for 14 hours for not thanking him properly. I'm surprised he didn't name it LeVar. Okay, and then finally this one. Daily Show with nice try, Mike Flynn. Oh, this was too much fun. Okay, not important, just fun. We're moving on. All right. Now, so it's easy to get depressed in this day and age with a lot of things going wrong. Donald Trump's president. You've got Roy Moore, this monstrous figure in Alabama. By the way, neck and neck in that race. He might still yet win. And it's easy to get discouraged, but you shouldn't be because it turns out voting matters. I want to tell you about something that happened last week, but it affects everything going forward, in my opinion. So there was a race in Oklahoma. It's in the county of Tulsa. It's deeply conservative. Now, Oklahoma overall went to Trump by 36 points. In this particular district, 37th district, it looks like it went to Trump by about 30 points, so it's hopeless. Actually, credit to the Democrats in a sense. Last time there was an election in this district, they actually poured money into it. They tried. They had their standard Democratic candidate, and they spent $200,000 and got clobbered. No chance, okay? So this time, they're like, all right, who cares? They don't put any money into it, relatively speaking, certainly nowhere near the earlier sum. And Allison Ickley Freeman runs. She's a 26-year-old lesbian mother out of Tulsa. And we're done with this, right? The district is at least 30-point Republican. You've got a 26-year-old with almost no experience in politics in one of the most conservative red districts in the country. Guess what happened? She won. I think you could see that coming, right? She won. She won by 31 votes, not 31 points, 31 votes. There's two reasons why I'm telling you this story. Number one, I think that the country is going to be shocked at how sick of Republicans even the reddest places in the country are. Why? Because in those places, they have tried the Republican experiment. For example, in Kansas, they cut taxes to the bone for the rich, and then they had to have giant deficits, which they can't have, and they had to find a way to get rid of them, and they slashed their own kids' educations. And the anger is rising and rising. Now, Brownback barely won that election, partly because Hillary Clinton was on the ticket on the other side at the national level, and she was perceived as the establishment, and people in Kansas were mad at the establishment. But he barely squeaked by, and then he got the hell out of Dodge, in his case quite literally, and took some nonsense position at the Trump administration. But people in Kansas are furious. People in Oklahoma are also mad because the Republicans have destroyed the budget there as well. I'm just gonna give you a snippet of it here. As Freeman, or Ilke Freeman herself explains, the 26-year-old said Oklahoma's continuing state budget problems are a big concern of voters she spoke with during the campaign. Everyone I was engaging with depends in some way or another on basic needs that are provided through the state budget. People started to feel scared. Well, that's exactly right, because the country is in some degree of devastation. I know the elites don't understand that, but when you're making $7.25 in the middle of Tulsa, and you can't pay the bills, and someone in your family gets sick, you get justifiably concerned, very, very concerned. And then if you need the government to help to make sure that your family member doesn't die, well, you begin to understand the value of government. And then when the Republicans come along and say, no, we're gonna cut those services that now a lot of you are relying on, because we want to give one more tax cut to the rich. Well, people start to, at some point, rebel. And they're doing it even in the deep heart of Oklahoma. There's been 4 special elections that Democrats have flipped in Oklahoma. So this one was unbelievable. But there's also a second factor that's important, which is the Trump voters, well, it's hard for them to get excited because things are not going that well. He hasn't been able to pass anything, and everything he has proposed has involved more giveaways to the rich and taking away either health care from the poor and the middle class or literally increasing their taxes to pay for tax cuts for the rich. So hard to get excited, so they largely stayed home, whereas Democrats are angry and they went out to vote. And in a lot of these elections, you'd be shocked at what it takes how little it takes to get someone in office. So let me show you the vote in this case. The vote was 2,234 for Allison Ickley Freeman and 2,203 for the Republican candidate Brian O'Hara. That's a 31 vote difference. You know what happens when you vote? You win. So I am not the establishment guys on TV yelling at you like, hey, why don't you get in line and vote for whoever we tell you to vote for? Well, it's your fault for not voting for Hillary Clinton. No. It was their fault for not giving people a reason to vote. You put up an establishment candidate when people can't stand the establishment anymore. You put up a random 26-year-old lesbian mom in the middle of Tulsa, they're like, good enough, let's go. Get the bums out, good enough. Okay, I'm saying for Tulsa, for me, it's great enough. So we need to put up real human beings as candidates, not corporate-backed robots. And if you do that, then you give people a reason to vote. And if you register and you vote, and it's for a candidate you love and that you believe in, that you know is uncorrupted, then guess what happens? We win. Look, if they're telling you, hey, nothing's going wrong, nothing is rigged, don't worry about it, your wages should be as low as they are, they're full of crap. If they tell you to vote for the establishment person, and don't worry, they'll be slightly better than the Republican, they're full of crap. But what I don't want you to do is take that as discouragement that you shouldn't try. You should try like hell as an activist, and then you should register and you should vote in primaries. And then yes, you should vote in the general election, and yes, anything is possible. If we can win in the heart of Oklahoma, we could win anywhere. So that one does depend on you. Look, it's on the Democratic Party, progressives overall in the country, to find candidates who are uncorrupted, to find candidates who are great, that you have confidence will actually work for you and give you real change, right? Then it's on you to register and vote, and if you do, I'm telling you right now, look at this example. You can change the world. The victories we can have in 2018 and 2020, I believe they can be shocking. I think we're going to win 42 states in 2020 if we have a progressive candidate. Everybody in Washington, when I tell them that, they go, 42 states, you're crazy. No, I'm not crazy. The country is progressive. We need to give them a progressive, uncorrupted candidate, and we will win everywhere. And it's not just my hope, it's not just faith. Here it is, it's already happening. So up and at 'em, let's go fight, let's go win. Okay, I gotta take a break. When I come back, I'm gonna tell you some of the folks who could help you and all of us in getting those wins. I'm gonna tell you about a new crop of Just Democrats. We got one exciting announcement after another. I'm gonna tell you about these guys today. We got a dramatic announcement coming up in a couple of weeks that's gonna be awesome and you're gonna absolutely love. But the candidates that we're gonna show you are great. But the first one, I think that it's gonna go to the core of what you guys believe in. It's such a great story, you're gonna love that story, because you know who that guy is? He's you. I'll explain what I mean when we come back.
The big corporations and CEOs are going to be
All right, back on the Young Turks, guys. So we're doing a 10-day Black Friday sale. My son yesterday asked me what's Black Friday and why is it black? And I said there's sales, and he's like, why is that a bad thing? I'm like, trust me, it's a bad thing. But I don't like shopping. Luckily, you guys don't have to go out to shop. You can go to Shop TYT and order right now. So I'm told there's a panic on about these hats because they say member on the back and they're super badass and Mark Thompson wears them. There was 50 and now we're down to 20. So you do need to panic. Once we're out, I don't know what happens. We never ever ordered them again. No, I don't know, but I do know that they'll be out for the Black Friday sale. So text DEAL, DEAL obviously, to 228466 to get more deals. But right now, members only hats on day 7. So that's shoptyt.com. Easiest thing to do is just go shoptyt.com and you'll get it, okay? All right, let's tell you about some wonderful new things, okay? Here we go. We've got great new announcements for New Just Democrats, and you're gonna love these guys. Every one of them is uncorrupted, every one of them represents you, every one of them is a strong progressive. So first we're gonna start with Brent Welder. Now, and as I tell you all this, most important thing is if these guys are gonna win with small contributions so they don't have to take corporate PAC money, and they don't, you're gonna need to help them out. So justicedemocrats.com/winning, okay? We need you to do that for these new 5 candidates that are out now, justdemocrats.com/winning. So Brent Welder, what's his story? Well, I love Brent's story because it's the story of you. Not only did he work with Bernie Sanders and he was appointed to the 2016 Democratic National Platform Committee, not only, by the way, and what did he do? He proposed a plank that would get money out of politics. Now that is not surprising if you know Brent's history. You know why? Because he was a volunteer for Wolfpack. I love these guys, but it gets better. You ready? He was one of the first TYT members ever. He is you guys. So he's now running for Congress. It gets better. You ready for this? He's in a district, one of only 5 districts in the country, that Bernie Sanders won in the primary and Hillary Clinton actually won in the general election. So he's running in Kansas's 3rd district. But yes, that district is very, very winnable. If there's any kind of wave at all, Brent's a US congressman. So in these winnable districts, it's gotta be progressives. It's gotta be the uncorrupted. So you've gotta help Brent Welder out. Let me give you more from him. First, I wanna show you a couple of videos from Brent so you get a little bit familiar with him. Here, watch this.
I have a no conflict situation because I'm president. Get the hell out of here! Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously.
He says he's making America great again, but we know that America already is great. It's Washington that's broken, and America's coming to fix it. I'm Brent Welder. I'm sick and tired of big corporations calling the shots in Washington. I'm running for Congress to change it. I won't accept 1 penny of corporate PAC money for my campaign because I want to work for the people of Kansas's 3rd district, not Wall Street CEOs.
America's coming for you, Trump. No corporate PAC money. I love these guys. I want to show you one more video. And then, by the way, remember, guys, all the links are going to be in the description box if you're watching on YouTube. And then and on Facebook, we'll try to get them in the comments, okay? Because I want you to go to their websites. I want you to volunteer for them if you're in their district. And then you've got to get them small donations so they could beat the big corporate money. JustDemocrats.com/winning. Here's more from Brent.
I went on to work around the country with Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, and the first Iraq War veteran elected to Congress. Last year, I worked with National Democratic Party leaders to pass the most progressive platform in history. To make America work for everyone, we need fundamental change in Washington. I'll fight to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour because no one who works full-time should live in poverty. I'll vote to wipe out corrupt tax loopholes for giant corporations and billionaires.
And he goes on to list a lot of his policy positions, every one of which I think that you will deeply enjoy. You could see their videos also in the links in the description box below, the full videos. I want to give you one of his quotes. He says, "Our campaign is thrilled to join the Justice Democrats Team, I'm running for Congress because billionaires and giant corporations have too much control over our government, and Justice Democrats is a fantastic ally in our movement to ensure that government represents working families, not billionaire donors. We are running in one of the only 5 Republican-held districts that was won by Bernie Sanders in the primary and Hillary Clinton in the general. We look forward to working with the Justice Democrats to win this top targeted swing district by running a grassroots campaign founded on strong, truly progressive values. And if you're wondering, really, Democrats winning in Kansas? Of course. And you know, a lot of the establishment guys will say, oh, no, $15 minimum wage. In Kansas, they don't want that. Who doesn't want that in Kansas? The Koch brothers live in Kansas. Maybe they don't want that. Well, kind of. They mainly live in New York. Anyway, they don't want that. The corporations don't want that. But do the people of Kansas want a decent wage when they work their ass off? Of course they do. Of course they want $15 minimum wage. So that deeply improves people's lives. Now, one more from Brent here.
The big corporations and CEOs are going to be gunning for me in this campaign. I need your help, your energy, and your enthusiasm. Let's show the corporations and billionaires their millions of dollars are no match for you. That America already is great, and now we're coming to clean up Washington once and for all.
All right, and his website is brentwelder.com. For God's sake, go help him clean up Congress once and for all. These are not faux populists. They actually are among you guys. They are you guys. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had real people in Congress instead of the corporate robots? You could make that happen. We're trying to get to, by the way, it's a really modest goal, $17,500 for the 5 candidates we're introducing today. So justicedemocrats.com/winning, because even that little amount will help these guys a tremendous amount and put them over the top. Next guy is Derek Crow. He's Texas's 21st district, and Derek is in a seat that was held by a Republican that's now going to be an open seat. They call him a science nerd because he challenged Congress's most detested science deniers. I love that. He led Rethink Afghanistan project at Brave New Foundation because he was sick of the money that was being poured into these wars that were not only not useful but counterproductive. He worked with Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. That's a group that's checking Donald Trump as we speak, making sure he's not getting away with his conflicts of interest. He's backed by Democracy for America, Bill McKibben, and obviously now Justice Democrats. Let me show you a video from Derek.
In this race, I am fighting to get corporate power out of politics and to get representation for this district that responds to constituents' needs instead of to big donors and their PAC donations. I am Derek Crow. I'm running for Congress in the 21st District of Texas.
God, uncorrupted. I love these guys. One more quote from Derek. To save the future from the fire, we must retake this country from corporate power and Wall Street money. The best way to do that is to run candidates who embody progressive values. Just as Democrats fight for populist policies like urgent climate change action, Medicare for all, college for all, and a $15 hour minimum wage, we as Democrats must also get our house in order and divorce our official party structures from big money so that working people know where we stand. The future of our party, our democracy, and our planet depends on us taking back Congress with these values guiding us. Hard not to like these guys. All right, his website, electcrow.com/join. All the links down below, justicedemocrats.com/winning. Let's get these guys money. $17,500, it is not much, but it makes a huge difference. The corporate guys will come in with a lot more money, but we'll come in with volunteers and we'll come with passion, and our warriors will defeat their mercenaries. Let's go to Colin Alred next. He's in Texas's 32nd district. Every one of these guys, I know the establishment guys will say, no, but can he really win? Yes, he can. He actually played in the NFL for the Tennessee Titans, and he's got a great story. Here, watch this video.
I made it to the NFL through perseverance. The first time I tried out, I got cut. Came home to work at the YMCA sweeping floors before I finally made it. I was a backup linebacker and special teams player for 5 years. I lived my dream, but I'm most proud of my work as an attorney, defending civil rights and voting rights across Texas, protecting affordable housing with Julian Castro at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and mentoring other kids who need the same shot I got.
You know who he's running against? Pete Sessions. That's Jeff Sessions' brother. How great would it be to send that guy home? So Pete Sessions, of course, has voted to repeal Obamacare about 1 million times. He voted for Trump's healthcare policy that had about a 17% approval rating because it mainly took healthcare away from you guys and gave tax cuts to billionaires. It's not the first time that Sessions has worked for billionaires. He voted for the bailout. What happened, conservatives? I thought you didn't believe in bailouts. I thought all you wanted was bootstraps. Now here's Colin. He actually brought himself up by the bootstraps. Pete Sessions, meanwhile, is voting and working for Wall Street. You know that Allred got into Berkeley Law School, and he's like, Berkeley, hold on a minute. I'm gonna get back to you in a minute, okay? But I'm gonna go play in the NFL. He goes, plays in the NFL for 5 years, and then goes back and becomes a lawyer. Goes to law school, and now he's fighting for voting rights, voting protection programs, and by the way, he's already raised $267,000. He's coming, and he played defense, so he's about to tackle Pete Sessions. It's gonna be great if we beat Pete Sessions. You gotta support these guys, justdemocrats.com/winning, and in this case, colinallred.com/join. Check out his website too. Have I mentioned the links are always in the description box? Go check him out. Next, Jenny Marshall. She is running in North Carolina's 5th district. That is obviously in the state in 2018. That is the time for the race. She is running against one of the worst people in America, let alone Congress. It's Virginia Fox. JR, you remember Virginia Fox? She is the worst. She opposes birthright citizenship. She thinks even if you're born in America, no, I don't think you should get citizenship. Then Virginia, who should? Let me guess, just the folks you like. Gee, I wonder what race they're gonna be, Virginia, I can't quite tell. Anyway, she called Matthew Shepard's death a hoax. She's a terrible person. She denied aid to, she voted against aid to victims of Hurricane Katrina. And you know what? Her lead in that district is not that large. Not that large at all. So Jenny Marshall can beat her, and if she does, you're gonna be so proud. She's endorsed by Sister Giant, Blue America, the local Our Revolution groups, brand new Congress, now Justice Democrats. And here's Jenny's quote. Jenny Marshall is a public school teacher and a community organizer. As her website explains, she is running because for far too long, our families and communities have been ignored, dismissed, and disenfranchised. Wall Street and huge conglomerates have put profits over people. This must change. Jenny is prepared to step up and fight for all of us in Washington. That means passing Medicare for all, investing in our future, and helping to create economic equity for all people. You know what Jenny was? She was a teacher. She is a teacher. She is teaching 8th and 9th grade social studies. And when she was in Indiana earlier in her life, she fought Republican efforts to slash education. She fought for your kids. Now she's ready to take that fight to Washington. I love it. Her website is marshallforhouse.org. So go there, volunteer, do what you can. JusticeDemocrats.com/winning. One more, Brianna Westbrook, Arizona's 8th district. And Brianna makes us all proud, part of the diversity that we've got in Just Democrats and among real progressives. She's a transgender woman running for Congress. She's got a successful sales career. I love her video, we'll put it down below as well, where you've got regular folks in her district in Arizona saying, Brianna stands for me, Brianna fights for me. Now, one of her opponent is another disaster, Trent Franks in Arizona. He sponsored a lead effort to pass a bill that would make abortion far more difficult, make it in a 20-week period, and he would like to start a database to track Muslim leaders in the country. Fundamentally un-American, that's who Trent Franks is. If a successful Justice Democrat beats him, it would be wonderful. And again, these districts are more winnable than you realize. Quote from Brianna. Brianna seeks to represent Arizona's 8th congressional district for what she can give to this country, not what she can take. She runs a clean campaign that supports universal health care and a quality education for all, not just privileges for a select few. Her website is westbrookforcongress.com. Guys, you asked for clean candidates. You asked for people you can believe in that are true progressives, not establishment hacks, not people who take corporate PAC money and then turn around and vote with their donors and not with you guys. Here are those candidates, the candidates that you asked for. So go support them. JusticeDemocrats.com/winning. And if you're in their districts, for God's sake, go volunteer for them. Our volunteer army is going to honestly annihilate our competition. We're gonna run over them. I've seen it happen time and time again. You go knock on doors and you win. Warriors beat mercenaries. Let's go make this thing happen. Thank you, guys. It's exciting times. All right, now let me give you a story of why we need the change. So that's in today's news. So let's go to the next story. So Ajit Pai is the head of the FCC, that's the Federal Communications Commission, and he is honestly a corporate hack. He used to work for Verizon, got paid a good amount of money from them, and then the Republicans put him at the FCC to make sure that he changed the rules in favor of companies like Verizon. It's not just them, it's AT&T and the other internet providers. Now, the reason you have the internet as you do now, which is free and open, is because there were regulations put into place. The regulations do not go and interfere with the internet. In this case, it's a regulation that simply protects the internet, that says that companies who have the pipes going into your house cannot themselves regulate the internet unfairly and slow down some websites, speed up other websites, and create an unequal internet. All it does is protect the internet. So Ajit Pai was brought in to destroy that. And in May, he got his first vote that he wanted to begin to end net neutrality. Now, as we go through this, I'm going to explain to you why the right wing is actually opposed to him, the ones that are online, and why they're right. They need to be more opposed to him than even the left wing. So first, let me give you what happened today. Ajit Pai, the Republican chairman of the FCC, announced on Tuesday that the FCC will vote to roll back Obama-era net neutrality rules that require internet service providers to treat all web traffic equally. Now, let me begin the explanation for the right wingers. You might see that and go, what? Well, look, if the Republicans like him, I guess I like him. And Obama-era regulations sound scary. Obama didn't do anything to change the internet. He just passed a regulation saying don't touch the internet. You're not allowed to change the internet. Now, that's a regulation you should love. Now, why should the right wing be more concerned than the left wing? Guys, look at all of your, the alt-right guys, for example, right? They say things that get them banned from sites left and right. And if the giant corporations are regulating the internet, they want to be able to sell to everybody. They're not going to want to have these right-wingers saying crazy stuff on the internet, and especially if they're taking on the establishment in their own party or multinational corporations. They're not going to want that at all. You guys are going to be the first ones thrown overboard, and then they'll come for us. Why? Because they're corporations. They just want to maximize their profits. And if your website is hindering their profits in any way, shape, or form, you think they're going to care about you? They're legally not allowed to care about you. Of course they'll slow down the websites you like unless you pay a ransom. You think corporations are your friends? They're not humans. They will maximize profit by law. So along those lines, the Hill reports, the move is a win for companies like Verizon, Comcast, and AT&T, which would be freed of restrictions on blocking or throttling certain content or requiring websites to buy into internet fast lanes. Hey, all you alt-right guys out there, you got all the cash in the world to get into a fast lane? I didn't think so. So if you don't pay for the fast lane, they can now, if this passes, and they're going to have the final vote on December 14th, I'll tell you about that in a second. If this passes, that's it, there's no more net neutrality. And those companies can say, one, you didn't pay me a ransom, now your site is incredibly slow. Oh, look, people can't go on your site, but they can go on my site. Do those giant companies have websites of their own? Do they have web presence? They have gigantic web presence. Oh my God, HuffPost is part of Verizon. You right-wingers, Huffington Post will be super fast, and your websites will suck. They just told you they're able to throttle them all the way back. So why am I fighting for it as a progressive? Because I believe in America and I believe on the internet, and I don't think that anybody should be throttled. And look, we've got partnership with some of the biggest companies out there on the internet. And we'll see how things turn out. We might be totally fine. But it is a terrible idea overall. A terrible idea for these corporations to have the ability to regulate the internet by themselves when you didn't even vote for them. They're not accountable to you. Okay, more on this. Jessica Rosenworcel, who's an FCC commissioner, said, the God's honest truth. She said, Our internet economy is the envy of the world because it is open to all. This proposal tears at the foundation of that openness. It hands broadband providers the power to decide what voices to amplify and which sites we can visit, what connections we can make, and what communities we create. It throttles access, stalls opportunity, and censors content. Philosophically, this is one of the worst things that the government can do. Because look at TV, both for the right wing and the left wing. You think they represent you? They're almost all millionaires on TV. And what? Again, if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter or you're a Republican, you think that all those guys on cable news voted for your candidate? I'd say approximately 148 out of 150 voted for Hillary Clinton, and all the giant corporations who backed her. So they already own TV. All the money in politics goes to TV. But that internet, it's pesky, it's annoying with its freedom and its openness and its equality. They're coming to crush it. You've got to fight back. You know how many comments have been sent already to them? 22 million comments. They don't give a damn. So I think we got to show up. I think we got to go to their house. I don't mean their physical house, I mean their office, okay? So first, let me explain when the real vote is. So today they took another step forward, but Pai now plans to hold a final vote on the proposal at the FCC's December 14th meeting. The people said and roll out details of the plans next week. Look, I don't know that I could organize one more thing, but December 14th, the FCC building should be surrounded. And if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And it's not to say that you do anything outside of politics. Look, I don't know what your affiliation is, but I'm a progressive. I believe in nonviolence and I believe in political action. So the address for the Federal Communications Commission is 445 12th Street Southwest. You should start showing up now. I don't care if it's one guy with a sign. I don't care if it's 12 guys, 100 nurses, 1,000 teachers, whoever it is. This is in Washington, D.C. From this day to December 14th, you should let them know that you exist and that you want a free internet. 1-888-CALL-FCC is another way to reach them. No other call should get through. 1-888-225-5322. Let them know. And then finally, look, I didn't dig this email up. It's on their website. We sent 22 million comments, and Ajit Pai apparently burned them in some campfire, right? Doesn't care. 22 million people want a free internet. Yeah, but the guys who paid me before, the guys who are going to pay me after I leave this job, want me to sell out the internet. So that's what Ajit Pai is going to do. So here's his email: ajit.pai@fcc.gov. Like I said, this is public information. You could have found it on the website as well. I'm not doing anything that you can't see in public. But if they ignore 22 million Americans, I guess they got to see you before they understand that you're real. So look, I wish I could help more. I wish I could stop everything and go figure out a way to organize rally on top of rally and get 1 million people to show up at the FCC. I'm handing it off. I hope you guys can begin to do this on your own, or have the right wing organize the right wing, the left wing organize the left wing, the moderates do whatever you got to do. But just stop by at the FCC and begin the protest now. And on December 14th, they should hear you roar. And if they steal the internet from you, at least let them know that you're not going to let them get away with it. And shake the rafters a little bit. If they close that window, man, there goes freedom. And from there on, they can control all the media. And then we got no tools to fight back against the establishment and the elites. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. Tweets for you guys. Woke Poppy says, all these Justice Dems are amazing. I agree with you. Took a long time to select all the candidates. And by the way, it wasn't me. It was the staff of the Justice Democrats, 15 people that came over from the Bernie Sanders campaign. I think they've done a brilliant, brilliant job of selecting candidates that are strong, progressive, and can actually win. So great credit to them. Riley Grady says, net neutrality is one of the biggest fights of our lifetime. That's absolutely right. Admiral Marston says, corporate Dems think these districts can't be won because they haven't tried since the Southern strategy. They are scared to leave their safe zone or cross into territory run by donors that aren't theirs. They say a J-Dem can't win. I have a whole row kana for him. And more to come, guys, more to come. In a couple of weeks, more exciting announcements. Man, we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, man. We're fighting for you day in, day out. Okay, can I see, speaking of which, can I see justdemocrats.com/winning? Let me see where we are with that. Let's see if we can pull that up. Okay, not bad, good start, guys, good start. $3,353. Let's see if we can get to $17,500 so that they got a fighting chance. All right, let me go over here and do a couple more stories for you guys. Okay, well, the jury was out on whether Donald Trump was going to back Roy Moore. You got to see where this one was going, but no, the Trump administration from time to time said no. If we were going to back Roy Moore, Donald Trump would be down in Alabama campaigning for him, and he's not. Then Kellyanne Conway went on TV and said, no Senate seat is worth a child. Then a couple of days later, she went back on TV and said, just kidding, we want the tax cuts. So she said, and even Fox and Friends pressed her. They said, so what about the thing with the child? And does that mean you guys are for Roy Moore? And she's like, well, I mean, we need the seat for the tax cuts. We need the seat for the tax cuts. I mean, you got children, whatever, right? On the other hand, tax cuts for the rich. So finally, Donald Trump has broken his silence. Now, how often is he silent? Not very often, right? When any Democrat's in trouble, he's all over Twitter. But he wouldn't talk much about Roy Moore, but that's okay. We now have clear confirmation of which way he's going to go. So let's watch.
I can tell you one thing for sure. We don't need a liberal person in there, a Democrat. Jones, I've looked at his record. It's terrible in crime. It's terrible in the border. It's terrible in the military. I can tell you for a fact, we do not need somebody that's going to be bad on crime, bad on borders, bad with the military, bad for the Second Amendment.
All right, so that means you are not supporting Doug Jones, you are supporting Roy Moore. Now things are very, very clear. But look, we got more here, let's watch.
Well, he denies it. Look, he denies it. I mean, if you look at what is really going on and you look at all the things that have happened over the last 48 hours, he totally denies it. He says it didn't happen. And, you know, you have to listen to him also. Let me just tell you, Roy Moore denies it. That's all I can say. He denies it. And by the way, he totally denies it. Well, he denies. I mean, Roy Moore denies it. And by the way, he gives a total denial. He totally denies it.
Yeah, I think we got it. We got it, man. Okay, it's not a little denial, it's apparently a total denial. So that gets to the uneven playing field that we have among Republicans and Democrats. So when, for example, Senator Al Franken faces allegations of some degree of sexual harassment, he immediately comes out and calls for his own investigation, an ethics investigation into himself, right? And all the Democrats, Jonas Schumer, everybody else, rightfully so, by the way. And when you come to the Republicans, Roy Moore is accused of not jokingly touching a flak jacket, and I'm not trying to downgrade what Al Franken did. He's accused of horrible crimes of child molestation, or bringing a 14-year-old 30 minutes into the woods, stripping her to her underwear, getting completely naked himself, and trying to get her to touch his genitals. There's no gray zone here. And there's a 16-year-old who says she took him into his car and tried to rape her. And he had already written what a sweet little girl and how beautiful she was in her yearbook. Okay, so all this has come out. Other Republicans have said, I believe the woman, that it's too much. No, we can't go in this direction. Trump thinks, he denies it. He totally denies it. So Republicans concede nothing. So then he gets to say, well, no, since it's a denial, it's okay. the Democrats, they foolishly admit things and allow us to railroad them and allows us to smear them and do everything we can to them, whereas we have no consequences, no consequences. And are we surprised by any of this? Donald Trump is a different kind of monster. He's had 16 women that have come forward with sexual harassment or sexual assault allegations against him. So of course, and what does Donald Trump do? He denies it. He totally denies it. Because you deny it doesn't make it untrue. It's so weird. Because there's an allegation doesn't mean that it's absolutely true. You should look at the context of that allegation, see if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. But just because someone denies it doesn't mean that it's untrue. What a bizarre thing. But Trump is very, very similar to Roy Moore. Of course he's gonna back Roy Moore. This was a real conversation that Donald Trump would somehow grow a conscience? No, he just wants a seat. One more from Trump.
And I do have to say, 40 years is a long time. He's run 8 races, and this has never come up. So 40 years is a long time. The women are Trump voters. Most of them are Trump voters. All you can do is you have to do what you have to do.
You have to do what you have to do. And if it turns out a Senate seat is worth more than a child, then we're gonna do what we have to do to get those tax cuts. The Trump family would save billions of dollars from these tax cuts. On the estate tax alone, they would save over $1 billion, let alone what they would save on the alternative minimum tax and the pass-through rates being reduced. Trump has, at a minimum, tens of millions of dollars if he's absolutely lying about his wealth, which is probably true, or billions, if you believe him, he has billions of dollars to gain from those tax cuts. You think he cares about a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old being sexually assaulted when he's got money to make? He just told you, I don't care. We gotta do what we gotta do. That is the Trump motto. Okay, now, let me go to the counterattack. Let's go to the next story. So Doug Jones is running against Roy Moore, and he has hit him pretty hard with an ad here, which I am 1,000% in favor of. I'm afraid that Roy Moore is going to win this seat. I'll tell you why in a second. Roy Moore, of course, is the monstrous Republican candidate. Look, even before we found out that he was a child molester, we already knew that he doesn't believe in the US Constitution. Over and over again, when given an opportunity to defend the Constitution when he was on the Alabama Supreme Court, said, no, my particular religious views are more important than the Constitution. I don't care. I'm not going to abide by the US laws. That's very Taliban of him. So if he happens to be an evangelical Christian, if he was a Muslim, he'd be like, Sharia law is way more important than the Constitution. It's the same exact philosophy. He already said that he doesn't think that Muslims should be allowed into Congress. The guy believes there should be a religious test for office. It says in the Constitution there shall be no religious test for office. Roy Moore doesn't believe in America, let alone the fact that he's a child molester. So Doug Jones can't hit him hard enough. So, and again, I'll get back to why I think Moore is in actually good shape, unfortunately, in this race. But ads like this maybe begin to turn it around, so let's watch.
On Roy Moore's disturbing actions, Ivanka Trump says there's a special place in hell for people who prey on children. And I have no reason to doubt the victims' accounts. Jeff Sessions says, I have no reason to doubt these young women. And Richard Shelby says he will absolutely not vote for Roy Moore. Conservative voices, putting children and women over party, doing what's right.
Those were the pictures of the girls when he accosted them. To be fair, Roy Moore says that he asked the permission of some of the 16-year-olds' parents and then took them out on dates and made out with them when he was in his mid-30s. On the 14-year-old, he didn't ask permission. He tricked the mom saying that, hey, it's okay, I'm a district attorney. I don't want your daughter to have to sit through these painful custody hearings. Don't worry, trust me, I'll take care of her. Now the Republicans want to cry about an ad where you show the reality of what he did and what other Republicans are saying about him? Oh, go ahead, cry all day long. Doug Jones should run that ad over and over again and more. Did you see the pictures of those girls at the age when he went after them? And so many of his defenders in Alabama and other conservative radio and television, they say, oh, they look like 20-year-olds. Some of those girls did not look anywhere near 20. They looked like young little girls. He was banned from a mall because he was the local pervert that would keep hitting on young girls when he was in his 30s. You can't hit him hard enough. Now, why might he win? Because elections, unfortunately, are about who, and maybe fortunately, about who's more excited and who cares more enough to show up. Who cares more than the other side, right? So that's a good thing overall. But in the case of Republican voters in Alabama, I get the sense that they are animated to go out there and defend their guy. They don't care what he did. Democrats care. You know, you got Democrats accused of wrongdoing, and Democrats are deeply disturbed by it. A lot of the Republican voters think the exact opposite. Not only are they not disturbed, oh, it's the mainstream media that's against them, it's the elites that are against them, it's the liberals that are against them. I'm gonna go vote for the child molester. By the way, I'm not doing that, and I'm not putting it on you. We're gonna find out. The election is in December 12th. We're gonna find out how many Alabama Republicans don't care or are happy about a guy who molested those young girls. But my guess is a lot of them, enough to win. So if Doug Jones sits on his laurels and thinks, oh, it's okay, a bad tape came out or revelations came out about a loathsome Republican, how'd that turn out for Hillary Clinton? No, from this day to that day, you must attack, attack, attack. So this ad should be the beginning, not the end, and they should pound Roy Moore into oblivion, which is where he deserves to be. Otherwise, unfortunately, he will win. So if you are a progressive, a Democrat, a moderate, sane, decent in Alabama, you too should get excited, and you need to vote. If you don't, the other guys will win. All right, now last story for you guys. So Allison Hartson is now the Senate candidate in California for the Justice Democrats. She's taking on Dianne Feinstein. She was the national director of Wolfpack. She was one of the national directors. Mike Mineta is the other. Wolfpack needs to replace her. Now you can't replace her overall. We're going to get a young guy in who we think is great, who's been a fighter for us already at the state level and has been a organizer for us. But what we're asking you to do is to help by becoming a member. It's a simple drive, and I hope that you guys can do this, because if we don't do this, we can't get money out of politics, and then we lose on all the issues: net neutrality, the environment, bank bailouts, and the list goes on and on. So what we want you to do is go to wolf-pack.com/John and sign up to become a member. Okay, and we're going to do a thermometer. If we can get to 250 members, then we hire John. We need the money to hire John, otherwise we can't hire him. And that's the way things work, because we don't have big donors. We just have you guys. And if you fight together, you can win together. I'm going to show you a video of John in a second that shows you that. Here's a picture of John Shen. He is from Connecticut. And the reason the graphic says the closer next to me is because that's how he got his nickname. Because when they were fighting in Connecticut, he would drive an hour away from his home to go canvass voters to get them to turn out to make a difference. And he was always the last guy in because he had to work and then drive all the way in and then canvass, and he's the last one out. And he worked so hard. He was the Warrior of the Month in April, and then he became the organizing director in Connecticut. He's got a master's degree from Yale, and he's fighting right now for no money, and hopefully we can hire him for very little money to help bring democracy back. A lot of people go to Ivy League colleges and think, yeah, cha-ching, I'm gonna get paid, I'm gonna get a lot of money, I'm gonna go to finance, I'm gonna do a startup, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, right? You know, John is busting his ass as a volunteer to try to get democracy back and get money out of politics. Let's hire him. Let's raise enough money to be able to hire him. It doesn't take that much. We need 250 people to do that. By the way, he's currently a scientist who studies bacteria. So it's a good person to clean up Washington. So let me show you who John is. Take a look at this short video. This is what they did when they were in Illinois and they'd done a get-together for Wolfpack directors and organizers. And John told a story back then.
My name is John Shen. I organize for the state of Connecticut. I'm a research associate. For me, getting money out of politics is the issue that stands in the way of every other issue that I care about. Issues like stopping the negative impacts of climate change or getting universal health care are all being held up by the fact that in this country, people who have more money to spend in our political system than others have a louder voice. Money in politics is personal to me. Just in this most previous election, I wasn't very politically active or politically conscious even before maybe a year and a half ago. And I was sort of awakened by Bernie Sanders' campaign. And since then, I've seen a lot of the negative impacts of money in politics and the things that money in politics has enabled to become reality in our country. It's not the sort of world that I want to live in or the kind of country I want to live in the future. It's not the kind of country that I was promised as a kid or that I want to leave to my children. So that's kind of why I'm fighting for this. It's really been a great experience so far, working with the team, meeting people from really all walks of life in Connecticut and working towards this same goal that we share. Currently, I am the organizing director for the state of Connecticut. To come here today, I've taken 2 days off of work, spent money out of my own pocket to buy a plane ticket, pay for the hotel, really because I believe, in this issue and this organization a lot, and the people I've met through my time here.
Kid went to Yale, and he's got very little money, and he's paying out of his own pocket to go to learn about organizing so he can go back home and fight to get money out of politics so we can free our government. You got to help us hire him. We got to get warriors like this in here. And he says in the longer version of the video that they haven't won in Connecticut yet. We won in 5 states. Connecticut's not one of them yet. We're really, really close there. And he said even though we didn't win yet, the wins that we did get, man, he said it's one of the most fulfilling things he's ever done in his life. So look, I get it. Not everybody's got the money to donate, but then for God's sake, volunteer yourself. And you see what we do. Allison was a teacher in Orange County. She got promoted all the way up. Mike Mineta was a guy who would go up on telephone poles to fix them. He's the national director. The other guys one of them is called a mechanic because he's a mechanic. Right? And John went to Yale and he came in and he worked the hardest to get to a position. Let us hire John, wolf-pack.com/John. Make it happen. And together, if we fight together, we win together. I want to deliver 5 new states for you guys this year, but we need the staff to be able to do it. So let's go do it together right now. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's up?
Aaron, what do you like better? The rabies or the rabies? Go.
Can you believe this hysteria about Black Friday?
Oh yes. How do we convince the middle class that discounts on new televisions outweighs their utter lack of need for them?
Exactly. And the products on sale are inferior, derivative versions of what they would buy throughout the rest of the year. Cheaper materials, shoddier workmanship, preserve the profit margin.
And those poor retail zealots, they camp out overnight only to trample each other at dawn for coffee makers and Xboxes?
Commercialism makes me sick.
Oh, I don't know.
What were you saying?
Just that Shop TYT is offering some great Black Friday deals. 35% off hoodies and fleeces, hats too, plus other sales all weekend long.
Yes, officer, there's a strange woman on my property. No, I don't know if she's armed. I am calm. Something about hoodies, I think it's like gang related. Please, just hurry.
Don't miss 10 days of Black Friday happening now. Sign up for our email list or just check it out at shoptyt.com.
If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
You said I had small hands? They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
I saw a picture of John. I was like, look at this fucking badass Viking he met on his trip. And I was like, oh wait, that's John.
Yeah.
Because his beard is so grown. I swear to God, I didn't recognize him. I thought it was like a dude from up there, like a Viking looking dude from up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, we've got our own Viking. Look at Johnny Pie. Johnny Pie, we miss you, big guy. And he was at Svalbard. We were talking about how he was gonna go get the grains if he's the last person on Earth, and he's got to, or among the last people on that ship, and repopulate the Earth after North Korea. At least he's got the grains. He knows where it is. He can find it. Don't worry, humanity will be saved. Yet again, by a white male, John Idaho.
Attention, your healthcare may be at risk. Please pay attention to this special announcement. Donald Trump and Congressman Steve Knight are already sabotaging your healthcare. Get your free information kit.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian joins us.
Hi.
Hey. By the way, if you want to get compliments, wear this Covfefe shirt.
That's what Ben said.
Yeah, it's totally true. I was wearing it in New York, and one person after another, like, oh, cool shirt. Oh, I love the shirt. So shoptyt.com. We're in day 7 of a 10-day Black Friday sale.
I think it's weird.
You think the shirt is weird?
No, I don't get it. I just don't. I don't get the shirt.
The usual over-the-top honesty you get from the Young Turks, and so. But the great thing about it, Anna, is you don't have to get it.
I guess not. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't get.
Yeah.
So.
No, but people, I'm telling you, not recognizing me, just like random dudes off the street and women are like, "Ooh, I love the shirt."
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Do you
so I'm just telling you. That's the conversation that's happening. Okay, Bonita Yarborough writes, and of course Roy Moore is going to win. It's Alabama. They'd rather a pedophile than a Democrat. We're going to find out soon enough. John Brugliera says Doug Jones is weak on crime. Does that mean if Roy Moore wins, he'll arrest himself? Good question. There is no statute of limitations on child molestation in Alabama, so he could arrest himself. Zoe says invoking Ivanka Trump is brilliant. It appeals to all stripes of Republicans. Good job. Papa G says he's weak on border, like the border with Mexico is a major problem in Alabama. But you know that in places like Oklahoma, which now apparently is turning progressive, but
what?
A woman won in a seat that Trump had won by over 30 points. 26-year-old lesbian mom. Okay,
that's pretty amazing.
Yes, it's one of the reddest districts in the country, and she won. And that happened last Tuesday. Anyway, but Oklahoma passed a law against Sharia law. They're like, Sharia law is about to take over Tulsa, so we got to act now.
Priorities.
That's
important.
right.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me see justicedemocrats.com/winning. $3,625. 196 donors. Can I see 200 donors? That's not too much to ask for. By the end of the show, can I see 250 donors? Doesn't matter, $3, anything, okay? It's a big, big difference to those Just Democratic candidates that we told you about, including one of you guys, one of the first TYT members ever, is running in Kansas, and he has an excellent chance of winning. All right, now on to the usual depressing second hour stories that have been happening lately.
Yes. All right. CBS has officially decided to part ways with Charlie Rose following allegations of sexual harassment that the Washington Post reported on earlier this week. Now, the report indicated that there were 8 women who had worked with Charlie Rose and granted interviews to Washington Post, some on the condition of anonymity, while others did say that they were comfortable revealing what their identity was. Now, 3 of the women came out and said, this is my first and last name, here's what I experienced when I was working for Charlie Rose, and we want to go ahead and expose, some of his behavior. But 5 other women are worried about the ramifications of coming forward, so they decided to remain anonymous. Now, just to quickly detail some of the accusations against him, he was accused of making lewd phone calls to these women, walking around naked in their presence, and also groping their breasts and genital areas. Now, this didn't happen at CBS Studios. This oftentimes happened in his own home in New York. And what he would do is invite them to come over and work at a desk that he had in his own personal home. And in a lot of those instances, according to these allegations, he would prey on these women or take advantage of them. Now, 5 described Rose putting his hand on their leg, sometimes their upper thigh, in what they perceived as a test to gauge their reactions. 2 said that while they were working for Rose at his residences or while traveling with him on business, he emerged from the shower and walked naked in front of them. 1 said he groped her buttocks at a staff party. So I'm going to have some more specific allegations in just a minute. But again, CBS decided to part ways. He was also suspended at PBS. It's likely he will. I don't know actually what PBS is planning on doing.
They'll fire. That's my prediction.
That's my prediction, exactly. But they did suspend him immediately.
So we've gone over a lot of these over the last couple of weeks because this is a watershed moment. This is when we've hit a tipping point and women have the courage to come forward and say we're not going to take it anymore. Some, as we have discussed throughout the weeks, are tougher cases. And and we've had tough conversations about them, and people have criticized on all sides. And that's normal because we do commentary on these really difficult topics. Charlie Rose is not a difficult case. You read the whole long article, and as always, we'll have the link in the description box. And you will see that it was a disaster, and he did it over and over again. And first of all, the shower trick. I didn't know it was a thing that existed.
Yeah.
But anyone doing the shower trick is clearly doing it. I mean, who wants to watch a 70-year-old guy taking a shower when they're their intern or their staffer, etc. Right? No, it's obvious that he was. It's the same MO every time. oh, I need to work from home. You need to help me at home. You need to rearrange my books, my shelves, etc. And in the beginning, he's fine. And almost all of them describe a combination of fury and flattery. Like if you do something wrong, he's going to get really mad at you, but then he's going to give you some compliments. And in the beginning, it's fine. And they drive around and they go to his house. And then at some point, there'll be drinks or there'll be a dinner or something. And next thing you know, he's taking a shower. And then he'll say from the shower, can you come here for a second? And then he comes out with a robe, but the robe is wide open. You know, I used to hear these stories well after he got caught about Gary Hart, right? And now then Harvey Weinstein, and now Charlie Rose, and then it's not just that he keeps showing himself naked to these women. He then grabs them. Now he's a goner. He's done.
Yeah, look, there are so many things. Look, even I believe the women, especially considering the fact that there were so many of them. These incidents were corroborated by the Washington Post, meaning that they reached out to family members and individuals who knew the victims and spoke to them to make sure that what they were saying was true. Like at the time of this alleged abuse, which was, by the way, between the 1990s and 2011, did this individual confide in you that this happened? And they corroborated the case. But more importantly, Charlie Rose himself has fessed up to it. And I'll get to his statement in just a minute. But look, even if someone wants to make the case that like, no, this was consensual. Anytime someone is working under you, right? If you are an employer, if you are the boss, and in this case, he's the boss, you have power over these people. These women were low-level employees, meaning they were assistants or assistant producers, were hoping to work their way up within the company, right? And so the issue of consent becomes incredibly fuzzy when you're talking about an employer having any type of sexual involvement with someone who's working under him.
And so to be clear, by the way, this was his own company, which is kind of a side gig, not CBS and PBS employees. So he was able to bring them to his side gig.
Yep.
And then there's no HR.
Right.
There's less protections. And then he had his longtime helper, I forget if she was an assistant or something.
Actually, his executive producer, her name is Yvette Vega. And according to the Washington Post report, the women, the accusers, went to her on multiple occasions and she was quoted as saying, that's just Charlie being Charlie.
Now she says she deeply regrets having done that. But everybody knew. As a producer calls a young woman who's going over to Charlie's house and says, are you okay? Are you sure you're right? But at least some people knew that, hey, if a young girl goes to Charlie Rose's house, you got to ask her if she's okay. And the most haunting story was near the end of the article, where there's a very detailed explanation of how he lured this one woman in, and then he gets naked, and then he starts touching her, and she realizes, oh my God, I'm in this secluded area and I have nowhere to run.
Right.
And she's crying and he's still going and he's still going, right? And it felt like, honestly, like the movie Get Out. Like she's trapped and she can't get out.
Yeah.
And that's really bad.
And it's what I noticed, and it's a common reaction among all the women who are coming forward right now, is for the longest time they blame themselves, right? And they felt like they did something wrong or they did something that might have invited it. And now they're finally coming forward and realizing, no, I mean, I'm a person who had no position of power, who wanted to get ahead in this extremely competitive field of work, and he saw that and took advantage of that.
And by the way, by getting ahead, what they mean is, oh my God, it's such an amazing opportunity to work with a person they thought was a legendary reporter, an anchor, an interviewer, and so they're like, okay, but people say he's quirky. I can deal with quirky to get this amazing job in journalism. And it turns out quirky is way worse than they imagined.
So I want to read you just a couple of the specific allegations that were detailed in the Washington Post. Obviously, we can't get into every single one of them or else we dedicate an entire show to it. But you should read the piece, which we will link to in the description box. Kyle Godfrey Ryan, who was one of the accusers, one of Rose's assistants in the mid-2000s, recalled at least a dozen instances where Rose walked nude in front of her while she worked in one of his New York City City homes. He also repeatedly called the then 21-year-old late at night or early in the morning to describe his fantasies of her swimming naked in the Bellport pool. That's a reference to where he lived, as he watched from his bedroom. The young women who were hired by the show were sometimes known as Charlie's Angels. 2 former employees said Rose frequently gave unsolicited shoulder rubs to several of them, behavior referred to among employees as the crusty paw, a former employee said.
Hey.
That's just, yeah. A woman then in her 30s who was at the Bellport home in 2010 to discuss a job opportunity said Rose appeared before her in an untethered bathrobe, naked underneath. She said he subsequently attempted to put his hands down her pants. So it just goes on. And I want to read you the reaction from Charlie Rose. Let's go to graphic 50. He says that he's greatly embarrassed. I have behaved insensitively at times, and I accept responsibility for that, though I do not believe that all of these allegations are accurate. I always felt that I pursued shared feelings, though I now realize that I was mistaken. So he's not taking full responsibility or full ownership, but his argument is, well, I thought it was consensual.
Yeah, but when you ask women to come and into the shower when you're not in any kind of relationship with them, what made you think that that was in any way consensual? What a weird thing to ask. Sometimes the woman would be driving him, or she'd be in the passenger seat, and he just started grabbing her breasts. You thought that was mutual? If you guys are dating and you want to have fun, that's a different thing. You're not at all dating. She works under you, and every time they'd be like, "Oh my God, what's happening? Charlie Rose is grabbing my breast in the middle of this car. This is insane." A male colleague told one of the women involved, "quote, oh, you got the shower trick."
Yeah, so it's somewhat known, but again, like you don't know to what extent, because there were people quoted in the Washington Post piece who did work with Rose, and they said that they never experienced or noticed anything questionable. So not everyone knows everything.
No, of course, and I want to be super clear about that. I mean, sometimes people get carried away and, oh yeah, Rush Limbaugh today, of course. Oh, all of his female anchors must have known that. How would they know what the hell's going on in his home? Apparently some people knew because they'd warned some of the women, right? But obviously, like, why would Norah O'Donnell know anything about this? Why would Gayle King know anything about this? And remember what predators do. They do it to the powerless, not to the powerful. He's not gonna grope Norah O'Donnell because she would fight back. And she has power to fight back. Instead, he finds young girls, lures them where they can't run, does the shower trick, etc. There's 8 accusers here, and 3 of them are on the record. He's done.
Yeah, so I do want to go to the reaction of his former co-hosts, Gayle King and Norah O'Donnell. They addressed the Charlie Rose allegations on the show today, CBS This Morning to be specific. Let's take a look at the first video.
I got an hour and 42 minutes of sleep last night. Both my son and my daughter called me. Oprah called me and said, "Are you okay?" I am not okay. After reading that article in the Post, it was deeply disturbing, troubling, and painful for me to read. That said, I think we have to make this matter to women, the women that have spoken up, the women who have not spoken up because they're afraid. I'm hoping that now they will take the step to speak out too, that this becomes a moment of truth.
So that was Gayle King, and she was understandably and justifiably upset and disturbed by the allegations that came forward. Now Norah O'Donnell also said something, and I wanted to go to her statement. So let's take a look at that.
This is a moment that demands a frank and honest assessment about where we stand and more generally the safety of women. Let me be very clear. There is no excuse for this alleged behavior. It is systematic and pervasive. And I've been doing a lot of listening, and I'm going to continue to do that. This I know is true. Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or in society until there is a reckoning and a taking of responsibility. I'm really proud to work at CBS News. There are so many incredible people here, especially on this show, all of you here. This will be investigated. This has to end. This behavior is wrong. Period.
So a lot of strong statements coming from his former co-host, which is good.
Yes. They're put in a terribly awkward position, and it's not on them; it's on Charlie Rose who did all this, and unfortunately, it's true what people say, which is that since he was quote unquote successful and powerful, and I know a lot of people who love Charlie Rose. I'm not one of them. I think he does pedestrian interviews, and everybody always says, he's like, oh, the legendary Charlie Rose. He asks very normal questions. Anyway, but that's not important, but people put him up on a pedestal. And so when he's got that kind of power, it becomes harder for people to challenge him. Because if a young woman comes out and says, Charlie Rose did this and this, that Charlie Rose makes a lot of money for people.
Yep.
And he's got a lot of prestige. And all those people know him, presumably like him. And it's gonna take a lot for them to side with her instead of Charlie Rose. That is why this watershed moment is so important, because so many people have come forward and have had the courage to come forward, that they're coming forward at 8 at a time. And that was the case of Charlie Rose. By the way, those are 8 that came forward. Are there others that didn't come forward? Are there others that he did this to, but and they don't want to talk about it? They're horrified, mortified about what happened. So he's been doing this for a long time, and even if you loved him and you thought he was a great interviewer, it's not an excuse. And so it is what it is, and I think that's probably the end of Charlie Rose's career.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll move on to other news, including a herpes researcher who went around injecting people with the herpes virus without any government oversight.
You know why? Libertarian principles. We'll explain when we come back.
Hey, what's up? Aaron, what do you like better? Rabies or rabies? Go.
Can you believe this hysteria about Black Friday?
Oh yes. How do we convince the middle class that discounts on new televisions outweighs their utter lack of need for them?
Exactly. And the products on sale are inferior, derivative versions of what they would buy throughout the rest of the year. Cheaper materials, shoddier workmanship, preserve the profit margin.
And those poor retail zealots, they camp out overnight only to trample each other at dawn for coffee makers and Xboxes?
Commercialism makes me sick.
Oh, I don't know.
What were you saying?
Just that Shop TYT is offering some great Black Friday deals. 35% off hoodies and fleeces, hats too, plus other sales all weekend long.
Yes, officer, there's a strange woman on my property. No, I don't know if she's armed. I am calm. Something about hoodies, I think it's like gang related. Please, just hurry.
Don't miss 10 days of Black Friday happening now. Sign up for our email list or just check it out at shoptyt.com.
If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
You said I had small hands? They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
I saw a picture of John. I was like, look at this fucking badass Viking he met on his trip. And I was like, oh wait, that's John.
Yeah.
Because his beard is so gross. I swear to God, I didn't recognize him. I thought it was like a dude from up there, like a Viking-looking dude from up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, we've got our own Viking. Look at Johnny Pie. Johnny Pie, we miss you, big guy. And he was at Svalbard. We were talking about how he was going to go get the grains if he's the last person on Earth, and he's got to, or among the last people on that ship, and repopulate the Earth after North Korea, at least he's got the grains. He knows where it is. He can find it. Don't worry. Humanity will be saved. Yet again by a white male. John Idaho. All right, back in the Young Turks, Jake and Anna with you guys. So in the last segment, we did a story about Charlie Rose, and a lot of you have been asking on air, or online I should say, about Jordan Chariton. And we're not legally allowed to comment on it yet, and I know that's greatly frustrating to people, but it is most frustrating to us. And part of the reason that we're not allowed to comment on it is to protect people's privacy, including Jordan's. So now, you either trust us on that or you don't. By the way, we will be able to comment on it later. But some folks, for example, are saying, oh, that's it, I'm gonna cancel my membership. Hey, do whatever you gotta do. And we're trying to be as fair as humanly possible in these situations. And I don't think that anyone has, meaning anyone online that is not involved in this, has all the facts. But if without all the facts you want to say, no, I've already made up my mind, there's nothing we can do about that. And we hope that you trust us that we're trying to look out for everyone involved, and we will comment on it as soon as we can. And like I said, it is deeply frustrating that we can't yet, but so that's that. So I do want to thank our members of the day, Jeffrey Wheeler and Lady Garzone. And Anna, you probably didn't see, did this story on the Just Democrats, and Brent Welder in Kansas has a good chance of winning, and he was one of the first TYT members, and I love that, and he was a Wolfpack volunteer as well. Oh God, it'd be great to have. So we had a Wolfpack supporter who became a state rep in New Hampshire, and that was so gratifying. And it's now beginning to happen all over the country, and now to start getting people into the US Congress would be amazing. For those of you who do choose to support us, thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts. tytnetwork.com/join. All right, your tweets are Vance saying it's one thing to have someone on point to listen for you, referring to Charlie Rose, in case you fall in the shower or hurt yourself. I mean, he was in his 60s in some of these accusations. It's an entirely different situation to have someone watch you shower. That's just harassment. Of course it is. There's no other explanation than harassment for, can you please watch me take a naked shower? There's no other fact pattern that fits. Okay, Kimberly Colbert says the entire male gender needs to hold a meeting and establish boundaries. Well, in a sense, we're doing that in a meta way throughout the country. All right, guys, what's next, Adam?
All right. Back in 2013, a microbiologist from Illinois decided it would be a great idea to completely bypass any government oversight or regulation and test out a herpes vaccine that he created himself on people in the US. He later moved his clinical trials abroad. However, in 2013, there were as many as 8 individuals who were tested using this vaccine. They were injected, and now they are facing some of the ramifications of that decision. Now, this microbiologist is no longer alive. He died last year due to cancer, but he was associated with the Southern Illinois University. He was Associate Professor William Halford, and he administered the shots himself at a Holiday Inn Express and a Crowne Plaza hotel that were 15 minutes away from the researcher's lab. Halford injected at least 8 herpes patients on 4 separate occasions in the summer and fall of 2013 with a virus that he created. Now, the idea behind the vaccine was inject them with a different form of the herpes virus, and somehow, maybe that would cure them of the herpes strain that they currently have. But according to some of the individuals who have been injected, that is not what happened. And again, this was done without any government oversight. So according to the emails between Halford and the patients, extensive interviews with a participant, Halford did not procure written informed consent as required by federal law when testing a live virus on humans. Medical researchers, such as Halford, may not inject patients without oversight by a physician or a nurse practitioner. By the way, again, he was a microbiologist. He was not a physician. And as a result, he was not allowed to do these injections in the first place. And he knew what the rules were, but he decided to go against them. And the Southern Illinois University is facing a lot of heat right now because it seems as though they were supportive of his efforts. Peter Thiel, who's a well-known libertarian, was one of the investors in this effort to cure herpes. Also, one patient or one participant who says he received the injections in Illinois fears that the vaccine, which contains a live virus, may have given him a new and different type of herpes he did not have. So the type of herpes he originally had was the type that that results in mouth sores and things like that. He was injected with the genital herpes strain.
Oops.
And now he, according to what he's saying, is experiencing symptoms of the genital herpes.
Yeah, so if someone says, hey, I've got a virus for you, come get it injected at the Holiday Inn Express, say no. So these are sometimes difficult situations, and I'll tell you why. It's not always black and white. Because sometimes people have life-threatening conditions, and FDA has to, for good reason, move slowly. Because you want to make sure that you've tested it in labs, on animals, and then eventually very carefully on humans. And you don't want to rush that process, otherwise you'll have disasters. And if you've got a life-threatening condition, you can be very frustrated by the pace at which the Food and Drug Administration goes.
Right.
Now, this is not one of those situations, and I'm not minimizing the pain and suffering that these people with herpes live with, okay? Especially the ones that went through this extraordinary process to try to get rid of that pain and suffering. But there's a reason why the FDA goes through that process. Because if you don't go through that process, oops, we just gave you herpes 2 when you only had herpes 1. Oops, in one of the cases, the leg develops a giant rash and then a blister, and
right.
and we can't have a doctor running this out of a hotel room. You've got to do it the right way. But Peter Thiel, I don't know if this has to do with his libertarian principles, but the idea is rules. We don't want them. We don't want regulations. When you're talking about injecting people with a herpes virus, yes, you want regulations. You want to do it right, so you don't have this kind of out of control runaway situation. There's a reason why we have rules and laws.
So I agree with you. Obviously, I agree with you, especially when it comes to these types of clinical trials, because you're doing an experiment that could really destroy people's lives, right? And so there's a reason why there's a government entity doing oversight to ensure that people remain safe. And that's not to say that people are always going to, get the outcome that they want from these clinical trials, but it is important to have, a regulatory body keeping an eye on things and making sure that people don't get hurt. With that said, though, there are cases where, I think the healthcare industry is overregulated. So, you go to Europe and you hurt yourself, you don't have to go to a doctor to get a prescription and then go to the pharmacy and then hope that they, if I get hurt in Europe, for instance, which by the way recently happened when I lost my voice and I got laryngitis, went to the pharmacy and I told them what happened and they gave me the drugs I needed, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, I feel like it works out pretty well for people in Europe. And I don't know why we have certain laws in place or regulations in place that make it so incredibly hard to get the treatment that you need when you need it. But
so conservatives have this, and libertarians especially, have this idea that liberals want to control your life, and that's why they pass burdensome regulations on purpose. No, liberals want people to get out of their lives. So that's not why it happens. But does that, is every regulation by definition a good thing? Of course not. You've got to find the right balance of regulations. And sometimes regulations get outdated. Mm-hmm. So for example, in Los Angeles, they had this rule that you had to have a garage for your cars. Why? Nobody knows. It was probably left over from the 1930s when that was a really important thing, right? And then finally they were like, oh right, we don't need this, and then they got rid of it. Okay, and so that happens and that's normal. And maybe we'll get to a place like Europe where we can have a medicine dispensed to us at the pharmacies in the way that you got it. But remember also in Europe, they had to approve that medicine first.
Right.
It's not like they're like, I don't know, this is oregano sauce mixed with shaman voodoo, right?
I know that, yes. So of course the medicine has to be approved. I'm just saying that it's a lot harder to get the medicines you need to get better here in the United States than in Europe. Like in Europe, it's funny because when I get sick in Europe, which I always somehow get sick or hurt myself in Europe, I don't know why, but I always rest easy because I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go to a pharmacy and they're gonna hook it up, and they always do.
Or you can go to a hospital and they'll take care of you.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. They actually don't let you die in the streets in Europe. What a crazy continent. Okay, so last things here. Sometimes though, it depends on the corporate power involved because as the FDA is sometimes frustratingly slow, sometimes it is way too fast. So OxyContin, for example, got approved without doing clinical studies. Oops, turns out it's opium on steroids, kind of, almost literally, okay? And guess who, the guy who approved it at the FDA, you're not gonna believe where he wound up working a couple of years later. At Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin. What a wonderful coincidence. Yeah. So if you've got a hookup like that, well then all of a sudden your stuff gets approved even without clinical studies.
Right, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so the right answer is balanced regulation and a government that actually works for us and not corporate interests.
All right, moving on to something absolutely different. The Justice Department is aggressively going after Harvard University for its alleged affirmative action policies. Now, recently the Justice Department sent a letter to Harvard indicating that it is not complying with certain rules and as a result needs to comply or could face further investigation. So let me just give you some background into this. Back in 2015, there was a group of Asian students who filed a suit against Harvard University because they believe that they were rejected from the school as a result of its affirmative action policies. Now, right now, there are private lawyers involved in this case, but the Justice Department has decided that it wants to get involved because Jeff Sessions has been very clear about the fact that he is against these affirmative action policies and wants to ensure that, race is not a factor in deciding whether or not students get admitted. Now, last year, the US Supreme Court ruled that race can be one among many factors universities use in making admission decisions. So that's an important thing to bring up, because the fact of the matter is, if a school decides to use race as a factor in deciding whether or not someone gets admitted, it is just one factor, literally one of many factors. They still take academics into account. They still take, extracurricular activities into account. But race might be one of the factors that could help them make a decision if you have a very competitive pool of people applying. Now, the Justice Department has concluded that the school is, quote, out of compliance with federal law. Now, some people might read that and think, oh, that means that they're going against what the Supreme Court said that they can do. That is not the case. The reality is the Justice Department sent a letter to Harvard saying, you need to give us your documents and your files because we want to do an investigation. You have until November 2nd to do so. And then Harvard didn't reply until several days after the due date. So that's what they mean when they say Harvard is not complying. The Justice Department, by the way, the letter says that the Justice Department's interest in Harvard's policies do stem from this 2015 federal complaint that accuses the school of discriminating against Asian Americans in admissions. So I have some really interesting data about the student body at Harvard and also the number of people that get admitted due to legacy admissions. But I just want to open it up to you, Cenk. Thoughts on this?
All right. I think this is a hard case. Are Asian Americans discriminated against because of affirmative action? Yes, undoubtedly. Absolutely. Whenever you take away affirmative action in a place like California and Texas, the schools become overwhelmingly Asian. Just a fact. So when you see schools, great schools like Harvard, kind of, still mad at them for the Chelsea Manning debacle, that doesn't have Asian Americans in that percentage, you know that they're putting their thumb on the scale for other groups, and some for very legitimate reasons. But they are putting the thumb on the scale, and Asian Americans are being discriminated against. So I don't like affirmative action. I know exactly why it was needed, and it's true that it was needed in the beginning, because it was a good old boys network, and white kids would be allowed in because their parents went in, etc., and everybody involved was white. It was absolutely necessary in the beginning. It is now. It basically stigmatizes different groups. So I've heard a million times, oh, how do you think he got in, referring to a minority student?
Right.
And that drives me nuts. But now, by the way, you should be saying it about white people. So if you see a white kid at a school, you should be asking, how did he get in? And it might be because there's a thumb on the scale and they had to have more whites because they just don't want the schools to be 60% Asian. And the other reason might be because Papa went there, because of the legacy numbers that Anna's about to tell you.
Right, so I think that this whole affirmative action issue is it represents a microcosm of a larger, broader issue in society where we always focus on attacking the powerless, and while we're doing so, while we're distracted by that, the real issues are taking place and we're completely unaware of them. So this gives that example because the people who are robbing the intelligent, hardworking people who should be admitted based on merit are not the black students. It's people who have parents who went to Harvard or to these Ivy Leagues, okay? So a recent report looked into the incoming class at Harvard, the class that is set to graduate in 2021, and it's made up of 29% legacy students, meaning that 29%, that's nearly 1/3, right? Okay, so 29% of these people basically got admitted for that reason. And why I say that reason is because if you have a parent that went to Harvard, you're 3 times more likely to get accepted.
You want to talk about affirmative action? We have affirmative action for rich people, we do. And people that are already in power, and I'll include myself, put aside the wealth. Look, I have a certain degree of privilege now because I went to Penn and Columbia, so my kids have a better chance of going to, apparently, roughly 3 times better chance of getting into Penn and Columbia, which are good schools. That's not fair. Why should my kids have an advantage over your kids in West Virginia or your kids in the Bronx? Actually, those guys, your kids have to fight harder. They're under more difficult situations. I happen to have a really good public school in my neighborhood that my kids go to. You might have a terrible public school that your kid has to go to, and he fights beyond that, and if he gets good grades, he shouldn't be punished, he should be rewarded. You want to do affirmative action based on income level? That makes sense. But you have to take race out of it, if you ask me, and the most important thing is you have to take legacy out of it. And you want to know why they do that? Because the most important factor in whether you donate to a school is if 2 generations of the family have gone. So they're doing it for the money. And so
you're right.
29%. And by the way, remember, in the old days, the good schools did not have the smartest students. They had the most well-connected students. Princeton and Harvard did not do admissions based on intelligence and SAT scores in the 1940s and 50s, etc. They did it based on whether Papa was an important person. That's why even George W. Bush is a knucklehead. He had straight C's on a good day, on a good semester. And he got into Yale and Harvard because his dad was connected. Now his kids, for generation after generation, have an unfair advantage over your kids who are working so hard under much more difficult situations. It is grossly unfair.
And by the way, I feel like this is a testament to how powerful propaganda is, because again, if you look at the student body at Harvard, do we have those graphics by any chance? There we go, okay. So this is on Harvard's website, by the way. They like to tout their diversity. So if you look at the breakdown, the ethnic diversity of undergraduate students at Harvard, you will see that the Black or African American community within that school is just a tiny sliver, tiny sliver. And by the way, the Black students who do get admitted tend to come from wealthier families. So socioeconomic status is actually one of the most important factors that I think is taken into account when students get admitted. And I have another stat that will further explain that, and that's the faculty at Harvard. So if you see the vast majority of faculty, nearly 70% at Harvard is white, 9% non-resident alien, and then so on and so forth. But 40% of students overall, college-age students, receive Pell Grants, 40%. But if you look at Ivy League schools, Pell Grant recipients only account for 16%. Now, Pell Grants indicate these people need a little bit of financial help or financial support. They can't pay for the tuition on their own. You think Ivy Leagues are gonna, give them the upper hand when it comes to admissions? Hell no.
Unfortunately, what the top schools in this country have done is, again, redistributed the wealth, but to the top. So now, if you're legacy and you're already, in a privileged position, well, you're gonna get even more privilege, right? And if you're in a tough spot, you're gonna get less Pell Grants at the good schools. And of the white students who are going to Harvard, what percentage of them are legacy? And I don't know, but my guess is it's higher than 29%. You think a lot of the Black students are a legacy? Maybe some, but I doubt that it's at 29%. So another case of affirmative action for white kids. If Harvard's 16% Asian, you take away affirmative action, watch 16 turn to 60 overnight. And so are Asians being discriminated against? Absolutely. And look, on the socioeconomic stuff, it's maddening that they've flipped it on its head. And anyway, okay, I want to squeeze in one more story.
Okay, I'm actually gonna fast forward to the Sacha Baron Cohen story because it's light and it's fun, and let's end on that. Okay. A group of tourists in Kazakhstan were arrested after they wore the so-called mankini that Borat wore in his 2006 movie. Now it's the banana boat mankini thing. Okay, there's the picture. I apologize if it makes you uncomfortable. I probably should have warned you. But either way, that was just a funny part of the Borat film. And people who go and do tourism in Kazakhstan think it's funny to wear the mankini, except police in Kazakhstan do not find it funny, and they have decided to arrest this group of tourists who were seen on the beach wearing pretty much the exact same thing, including the Borat afro. Now, Sacha Baron Cohen, who is, of course, the personality behind Borat, is saying that he will pay for the fines that these individuals have been given as a result of what they were wearing. He says, let's go to graphic 63, to my checkmates who were arrested, send me your details and prove that it was you and I'll pay your fine. It's interesting though, because that movie led to a tenfold increase of tourism in Kazakhstan, but Kazakhstan hates the movie. They've banned it, they've banned the DVD sales. People are really sensitive about it. It's kind of amazing.
No, unfortunately, in a lot of parts of the world, the leadership of these countries are way overly sensitive. Again, Erdogan in Turkey is raging about some European country because somebody like drew a mustache on him or something. I don't remember the exact details, but you have greatly offended me. And Ataturk, maybe. And again, in Turkey, the national sport is oil wrestling.
Yeah.
But when gay people from around the world started showing up to guys oil wrestling, right? They're like, how dare you? And they canceled their own national sport. Okay, for a while they wouldn't allow it, now it's back. Okay, it's insane. Just take the tenfold increase in tourism and call it a day. That's a wonderful thing, yes.
Yeah, have some fun, man. By the way, one person said the following in regard to the Mankini. They should have a criminal charge for insulting the honor of the nation. Just chill out.
Calm down with your honor, okay? And anytime anybody's talking about honor, run for the hills. They're about to do something terrible.
Right.
Okay, all right, guys. There's only 10 hats left, I hear, for TYT hats for member. It says member in the back. TYTnetwork.com/join to become a member and shoptyt.com. Black Friday sale going on now. Okay, post game, we'll see you members there. Bye-bye.